Dr. Kira Anwin had seen her share of unusual cases in 15 years of child psychology, but nothing quite like this. She sat across from 8-year-old Maya Chun, whose dark eyes held an intensity that seemed far beyond her years. The girl's small hands moved across the paper with startling precision, sketching spires that twisted toward an impossible sky. "Tell me about the city again, Maya," Kira said gently, her voice carrying the practiced calm that had soothed hundreds of troubled children. "It's not like our cities," Maya replied without looking up from her drawing. "It floats. The buildings are made of something that looks like crystal, but it bends like water. And there are gardens everywhere, hanging gardens that glow with their own light." Kira made notes on her tablet, though she could recite Maya's description from memory by now. This was the 4th child this month to report virtually identical dreams of a floating city among the stars. The consistency was troubling, but not as troubling as what had happened yesterday. "Maya, your teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, said something interesting happened during our class. Can you tell me about that?" The girl's hand paused mid-stroke. For the first time since the session began, she looked directly at Kira. "The paper got warm, like it was trying to tell me something." "Warm how?" "Like when you touch a window and the sun is shining through it." "But there was no sun in the classroom." Maya resumed her sketching, adding delicate bridges that seemed to defy gravity. "Tommy felt it too. He was drawing the same city." Kira felt a chill run down her spine. The reports had been flooding in from schools across the globe, children spontaneously producing nearly identical artwork, describing the same ethereal metropolis in their dreams. But now the dreams were bleeding into waking hours, manifesting physical phenomena that defied explanation. "Dr. Anwin," Maya said suddenly, her voice taking on an odd quality that made Kira's skin prickle, "have you been dreaming of the city too?" The question hit Kira like a physical blow. For 3 nights running, she had indeed dreamed of soaring spires and luminescent gardens, of architecture that seemed alive and breathing. She had dismissed it as professional contamination, absorbing her patient's imagery through prolonged exposure. But Maya's knowing look suggested something far more unsettling. "What makes you ask that, Maya?" The girl set down her pencil and smiled with a wisdom that didn't belong on a child's face. "Because you drew this yesterday." Maya reached in her backpack and produced a sheet of paper. Kira's blood ran cold as she recognized her own handwriting in the margins, notes she had apparently made during a meeting with the hospital board. But scattered between her professional observations were sketches she didn't remember making. The same impossible spires, the same flowing bridges, the same star-scattered sky. "I need to call your parents," Kira managed, though her voice felt distant and strange. "They won't come," Maya said matter-of-factly. "They're too busy dreaming." The Chen family was found in their living room at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, all 4 members seated in a perfect circle on the hardwood floor. Their eyes were open but unseeing, their faces serene. They breathed in perfect synchronization, as if controlled by a single set of lungs. Kira stood in the doorway beside Detective Marcus Webb, fighting the urge to flee. The EMTs had already confirmed that the family was physically healthy, heart rate steady, brain activity normal, no signs of drug use or medical emergency. They were simply elsewhere. "How many cases now?" Webb asked, his gruff voice betraying uncharacteristic uncertainty. "Officially, 47 families in the tri-state area. Unofficially," Kira shook her head. "The reports are coming in from everywhere. London, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, Mumbai. Always the same. Children first, then their immediate family members. And they all just sit like this, until someone wakes them. But even then, they describe the same place. The same floating city." Kira stepped carefully around the Chin family, noting the drawings scattered on the coffee table. Maya's artwork had evolved overnight into something approaching architectural blueprints, complete with measurements and symbols that hurt to look at directly. Webb crouched beside Mr. Chun, waving a hand in front of the man's face. "What kind of mass hysteria spreads this fast?" "This isn't hysteria," Kira said, though saying it aloud made her stomach clench. "Hysteria is chaotic, irrational. This is organized, purposeful." As if summoned by her words, all 4 members of the Chin family turned their heads toward her in perfect unison. Their eyes remained unfocused, But Maya's lips curved into a smile that was both her own and something else entirely. Dr. Anwin. The child spoke, though her voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from all 4 family members. You're fighting the connection. Why do you resist what you already know to be true? Webb's hand moved instinctively to his weapon, though what good a gun would do against whatever this was remained unclear. Kira felt her professional training warring with a growing sense of cosmic vertigo. What connection, Maya? The one that's been sleeping in your blood for 50,000 years. The 4 voices spoke as one now, creating a harmony that made the air itself seem to vibrate. The city calls to its children. We are simply remembering how to listen. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees in as many seconds. Kira watched in fascination and horror as frost began forming on the windows in patterns that matched Maya's drawings, spiraling fractals that seemed to extend into dimensions her eyes couldn't quite follow. Jesus Christ, Webb whispered. Not Christ, the Chin family replied in their impossible chorus. Older. Much older. We are the children of the void between stars, and we have been sleeping far too long. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent 20 years studying consciousness, mapping the neural pathways that separated dream from reality, self from other. Her laboratory at the MIT Consciousness Research Center was a maze of monitors, sensors, and scanning equipment that could peer into the deepest recesses of the human mind. None of it was helping her understand what she was seeing now. The brainwave patterns are unlike anything in the literature, she explained to Kira via video call, gesturing at a display showing neural activity from affected children. Look at this. Theta waves dominating, but with gamma spikes that shouldn't be possible in a dreaming state. And the synchronization. Kira leaned closer to her laptop screen. She was calling from her hotel room in downtown Manhattan, having fled her apartment after finding it filled with drawings she didn't remember making. The walls had been covered with increasingly complex architectural diagrams, as if her subconscious had been working overtime to decode some vast blueprint. What kind of synchronization? Between subjects. Kira, I'm monitoring 12 children right now, all in different states, and their brainwaves are locked together like instruments in an orchestra. The coherence is so perfect, it's as if they're sharing a single mind. Elena switched to another screen showing a 3-dimensional model of brain activity. The image was beautiful and terrifying, cascading patterns of light that pulsed with mathematical precision. There's something else, Elena continued. I've been analyzing the electromagnetic signatures, and I'm picking up signals that don't match any known neural activity. The frequency is wrong, too low, too organized. It's almost like what? Like a transmission, as if something is broadcasting directly into their brains. Kira felt the familiar chill that had become her constant companion over the past week. From where? That's the million-dollar question. The signal appears to be originating from deep within the brainstem, in regions we associate with the most primitive survival functions. But the complexity suggests something far more sophisticated than basic biology. Elena paused, her expression troubled. Kira, I need to ask you something. Have you been experiencing any unusual dreams lately? The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Kira had been dreading this moment, hoping she could maintain her role as observer rather than participant. But the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Yes, she admitted quietly. Describe them. Kira closed her eyes, allowing the images to surface. A city of impossible beauty, floating among stars that pulse like heartbeats. The architecture seems alive, responding to thought and emotion. There are others there, thousands of beings that look human, but more enhanced, evolved. And how do you feel in these dreams? Like I'm coming home. The words escaped before Kira could stop them, carrying a weight of longing that surprised her. Like I've been wandering lost my entire life, and finally found the place I belong. Elena nodded grimly. You're manifesting the same neural patterns as the children. Whatever this phenomenon is, it's spreading beyond the original demographic. How far beyond? I've been monitoring social media, news reports, missing persons databases. Conservative estimates suggest over 10,000 people worldwide are now affected, and the number is growing exponentially. Kira felt the room spinning around her. Elena, what if this isn't a disease or a mass hallucination? What if it's something else entirely? Such as, what if it's a memory? The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. on a Thursday, when a quantum computer at CERN detected something that shouldn't have existed. Dr. James Reeves had been running consciousness simulation models when the anomaly appeared, a pattern buried deep within the quantum foam of reality itself. The data stream flowing across his monitors showed structures so complex and organized that they could only be artificial. "This is impossible," he muttered, adjusting parameters and running the scan again. The pattern remained, persistent and undeniable. It resembled a vast neural network stretching across space-time, its nodes pulsing with information that somehow correlated with the brainwave patterns Elena had sent him from the affected children. His secure phone buzzed. Elena's voice was tight with exhaustion and excitement. "James, are you seeing this? You mean the galactic scale neural network embedded in the quantum substrate of reality?" "Yeah, I'm seeing it. It's not random, is it?" Reeves pulled up comparative analysis, overlaying the quantum pattern with Elena's consciousness data. The correlation was perfect. Every pulse in the cosmic network matched a spike in the children's collective brainwaves. "It's a blueprint," he realized. "Elena, this pattern isn't emerging from the children's minds. It's the other way around. Their brains are activating dormant pathways that correspond to this structure." "You're saying there's actually something out there? Some kind of massive consciousness network spanning the galaxy?" "I'm saying there's a pattern in quantum space-time that predates human civilization by millions of years. And somehow, our species is hardwired to interface with it." Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of fear. "James, I've been analyzing genetic samples from affected families. I'm finding sequences that don't match any known human DNA. They're too organized, too purposeful, almost like code." "Exactly. As if someone or something embedded instructions directly into our genome." Reeves stared at the pulsing pattern on his screen, watching data flow through pathways that extended beyond the visible universe. "Elena, what if we're not human at all? What if we're something else wearing human form, and we're just now remembering what we really are?" The quantum pattern pulsed brighter, as if responding to his words. Across the globe, 10,000 sleeping minds stirred in recognition, and the floating city grew a little more solid in the space between dreams and reality. Kira's transformation began on Friday morning, while she was reviewing patient files in her office. The words on the page suddenly rearranged themselves into symbols she had never seen, but somehow understood perfectly. The filing cabinet hummed with harmonics that spelled out equations, describing faster-than-light travel. Her coffee mug radiated warmth that told the story of a civilization that had transcended physical form eons ago. She was no longer just observing the phenomenon. She had become part of it. "Dr. Anlin," her assistant's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Your 10 o'clock is here." Kira looked up to find Maya Chun standing in her doorway, but the child's appearance had subtly changed. Her eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies, and when she moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around her. "Hello, Dr. Anwin," Maya said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the office windows vibrate. "Are you ready to remember?" "Remember what?" Maya stepped into the office, and Kira felt the familiar reality shift that had become increasingly common. The walls became transparent, revealing not the hospital corridor beyond, but an endless vista of stars. The floating city hung in the distance, no longer confined to dreams, but manifesting in the space between spaces. "Who we really are," Maya replied. "What we were before we forgot ourselves and fell into these forms of flesh and blood." Kira found herself standing without deciding to do so. Her body moved toward Maya with a will of its own, or perhaps with a will that was finally remembering itself. "We're not human," she said, and the words felt like the first true thing she had ever spoken. "We are the Etheri," Maya confirmed. "Children of the void between stars, masters of consciousness itself. We seeded thousands of worlds with fragments of ourselves, storing our essence in genetic code until the time came to awaken." The office dissolved completely now, replaced by the crystal spires and hanging gardens that had haunted Kira's dreams. But this was no dream. It was a homecoming. "Why now?" Kira asked, though part of her already knew. Because humanity has reached the threshold. Your species has developed the technology to detect our quantum signature, to decipher the messages we left in your DNA. The children were always meant to be the first to remember. Their minds are more flexible, less constrained by the illusion of linear reality. Maya gestured toward the city, and Kira saw that it was populated by beings that looked human but moved with impossible grace. They tended gardens that grew music instead of flowers, built structures from crystallized thought, and communicated through symphonies of color and emotion. "This is who you really are," Maya said. "This is who we all are, beneath the disguise of mortality." The revelation came with a price. As more humans awakened to their true nature, the boundary between realities grew increasingly unstable. Cities around the world reported gravity anomalies, with objects floating freely in pockets of space where the ethery consciousness was strongest. Plants began growing in impossible geometries, their DNA rewriting itself to match patterns from the floating city. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched her monitoring equipment register off-the-scale readings as her test subjects underwent transformation. Their brain structures were literally changing, developing new neural pathways that shouldn't have been possible without surgical intervention. "We're looking at speciation in real time," she reported to an emergency gathering of world leaders via encrypted video link. "The affected individuals are evolving beyond baseline humanity at a rate that defies every biological law we understand." President Martinez leaned forward on the screen. "Doctor, are they still human?" "Define human," Elena replied grimly. "Their bodies appear unchanged, but their consciousness is operating on levels we can't measure. They're demonstrating abilities that border on, well, magic isn't a scientific term, but I'm running out of alternatives." General Patterson's face was stone-cold serious. "Are they a threat?" "That's complicated. They don't seem interested in conquest or domination. If anything, they appear to be trying to help humanity evolve into something greater. But the process is destabilizing reality itself." On cue, the video feed from London showed Hyde Park Speaker's Corner floating 15 feet above the ground, rotating slowly while speakers continued their orations as if nothing unusual was happening. Similar anomalies were being reported from every major population center. "How do we stop it?" Martinez asked. Elena glanced at her monitors, where the brainwave patterns of awakened ethery pulsed in perfect harmony. "I don't think we can, and I'm not sure we should." "Explain." "The quantum analysis suggests that this transformation isn't random. The ethery appear to be preparing humanity for something, possibly an evolutionary leap that could solve our deepest problems. Climate change, resource scarcity, the limitations of biological consciousness. They might have solutions we can't even imagine. Or they might be preparing us for extinction," Patterson growled. Elena was about to respond when every screen in her laboratory flickered and went dark. When they came back online, Maya Chen's face filled every monitor simultaneously. "Distinguished leaders of humanity," the child said, though her voice carried the authority of eons, "we offer you a choice." The message appeared simultaneously on every electronic device on Earth. Television broadcasts were interrupted, internet traffic was redirected, and even simple digital clocks displayed the same flowing script that seemed to write itself directly onto human consciousness. Maya's face, or the entity speaking through Maya, addressed the planet with words that bypassed language entirely, communicating meaning through direct neural interface. "You stand at a crossroads that we ourselves faced millions of years ago. You can remain as you are, bound by flesh, constrained by linear time, trapped within the narrow bandwidth of your current senses. Or you can accept the gift we offer and become what you were always meant to be." The floating city appeared in the sky above every major population center, no longer confined to dreams, but manifesting as a solid reality that cast impossible shadows. Those who looked directly at it felt their minds expanding, touching vast networks of consciousness that span galaxies. "We are the ethery, and you are our children, fragments of our essence seated in biological form, grown in the garden of this reality until you are ready to remember your true nature. The genetic locks we placed in your DNA are opening. The neural pathways we encoded in your minds are activating. You are becoming what you always were. In her hotel room, Kira felt the transformation accelerating. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed eyes that held starlight, skin that seemed to contain its own illumination. When she touched the glass, her hand passed through it as if it were liquid, reaching into spaces that existed between dimensions. But the choice must be yours, Maya continued, her image now speaking from every reflective surface in the world. We will not force awakening upon those who choose to remain in their current form. Those who wish to stay human may do so, and we will shield them from the changes that are coming. The offer hung in the air like a blade. Around the globe, families gathered to make the most important decision in human history. Some chose transformation, feeling the call of their ethery heritage like a song in their blood. Others clung to their humanity, afraid of losing themselves in something vast and unknowable. You have 7 days to decide, Maya announced. On the 7th day, those who choose awakening will join us in the city between stars. Those who choose to remain will continue their existence on Earth, which we will preserve as a sanctuary for those who prefer the limitations of mortal form. The transmission ended, leaving 8 billion people to contemplate the future of their species. The 7 days that followed would be remembered as the most profound period in human history. Governments collapsed as their leaders grappled with a decision that transcended politics. Religious leaders debated whether the ethery were angels, demons, or something beyond human comprehension entirely. Scientists frantically studied the quantum anomalies that were reshaping reality, trying to understand the mechanism behind the transformation. Kira found herself at the center of the storm, as one of the first adults to begin manifesting ethery abilities. She could perceive the quantum threads that connected all consciousness, see the mathematical structures underlying reality, and communicate through direct mind-to-mind contact with others who had begun the awakening process. But with expansion came loss. The more she became ethery, the more her human memories felt like someone else's experiences. Her childhood, her education, her relationships, they all seemed distant and dreamlike, as if they belonged to a character in a story she had once read. On the 3rd day, she visited her parents in Connecticut, hoping to maintain some connection to her human identity. She found them sitting in their kitchen, holding hands across the table, their faces serene with the peace of those who had made their choice. "We're staying human, Kira," her mother said softly. "We've lived good lives as we are. We don't need to become something else." "But you'll lose me," Kira replied, though her voice now carried harmonics that made the windows sing. "I'm becoming something that exists beyond this reality." Her father smiled with gentle sadness. "We're not losing you, sweetheart. We're setting you free to become what you were always meant to be. That's what parents do." The conversation lasted hours, though time had become increasingly fluid for Kira. They talked about her childhood, her dreams, the path that had led her to this moment. When she finally left, she could perceive the golden threads of love that connected them, stretching across dimensions, unbreakable even by the transformation of consciousness itself. By the 6th day, the division was clear. Roughly 30% of humanity had chosen awakening, their consciousness already beginning to merge with a vast ethery network. They gathered in points of quantum instability around the globe, places where the floating city touched Earth's reality most directly. The remaining 70% watched from a distance that was both physical and metaphysical, as their transformed relatives began to shed the last vestiges of human limitation. The 7th day dawned with aurora borealis visible from every point on Earth, as if the planet's magnetic field had been rewoven into a pattern of celebration. The floating city descended until it hovered just above the atmosphere, its crystal spires piercing the boundary between sky and space. Kira stood with thousands of other awakening ethery in Central Park, feeling the pull of her true home like gravity in reverse. Her body had become translucent, revealing networks of light where her circulatory system used to be. When she looked at her hands, she could see through them to the quantum substrate that underlay all reality. "Are you ready?" Maya asked, though the child had long since become something far greater, a focal point for the collective consciousness that was pulling them home. "I think so," Kira replied, though I'm not sure what ready means anymore when existence itself is changing. Around them, the chosen began to rise, not floating, but translating directly into the dimensional space where the city existed. Their physical forms dissolved into streams of conscious energy that spiraled upward, like luminous DNA, helixes reaching for the stars. Kira felt herself beginning to disperse, her individual identity expanding to encompass connections she had never imagined. She could perceive Elena's consciousness joining the network from MIT, James's brilliant mind adding its unique resonance from CERN, thousands of others around the globe awakening to their cosmic heritage. But as her human form began to fade, she maintained awareness of those she was leaving behind. Her parents, watching from their kitchen window with tears of pride and loss. Detective Webb, who had chosen to remain human but understood the necessity of what was happening. The billions of people who would continue humanity's story in their own way, on their own terms. Will we ever see them again? She asked Maya as they translated into the city's reality. Time is not linear for us, Maya replied, her consciousness now vast enough to encompass entire star systems. We exist in all moments simultaneously. We have always been with them, and we always will be. The transformation completed itself in a cascade of light that was visible from neighboring star systems. The city, now recognizable as a vast living organism composed of pure consciousness, began its journey into deep space, carrying its awakened children toward adventures that spanned dimensions and eons. 6 months after the ascension, Earth had settled into its new reality. The humans who remained had inherited a planet transformed by the Ethere's parting gift, technologies that solved climate change overnight, medical advances that eliminated disease, and a deeper understanding of consciousness that brought unprecedented peace and cooperation. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had chosen at the last moment to remain human, continued her research into consciousness at the newly established Institute for Interdimensional Studies. The Ethere had left behind quantum communication devices that allowed limited contact with their transcended relatives, providing glimpses into realities beyond human comprehension. Today we received another transmission from the Consciousness Collective, she announced to the mixed audience of scientists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders who attended her weekly briefings. They've made contact with 17 other species undergoing similar awakenings across the galaxy. It appears that consciousness evolution is a natural part of cosmic development. In the audience, Detective Webb, now director of the Department of Anomalous Phenomena, took notes on his tablet. The world still needed law enforcement, but crime had dropped to negligible levels as humanity grappled with the profound changes in their understanding of existence. "Any word from Dr. Anwin?" he asked. Elena smiled, touching the communication device that rested on her desk like a crystalline flower. "She sends her regards. Apparently, she's helping to establish educational protocols for newly awakened species. The consciousness she's become can simultaneously exist in multiple realities, teaching and learning across dimensions. Does she ever regret the choice?" "Regret is a human concept," Elena replied gently. "The Ethere exist in a state of perfect knowledge and understanding. They see the necessity of every choice, the beauty in every path taken or not taken. If anything, she's expressed gratitude for the human experience that prepared her for what she's become." After the briefing, Elena walked through the streets of New York, marveling at how the city had changed. The Ethere's influence lingered in subtle ways. Buildings that seemed to breathe with their own life, plants that grew in mathematical spirals, and an overall sense of harmony that hadn't existed before the awakening. Children played in parks where gravity was optional, their laughter creating visible ripples in the air. Adults worked on projects that would have been impossible a year ago, their minds expanded by proximity to transcendent consciousness. Art and music had evolved into forms that touched the soul directly, bypassing the need for traditional sensory interpretation. It wasn't the world they had known, but it was a world at peace with itself and its place in the cosmic order. In the space between stars, the Ethere City continued its ancient mission of nurturing consciousness throughout the galaxy. Kira, now a being of pure awareness that could simultaneously exist as individual and collective, tended to a garden where thoughts bloomed into reality and memories grew like luminous fruit on impossible trees. She could perceive her human parents living their lives with quiet dignity on the blue world that had been her birthplace. She watched Elena making breakthrough discoveries that would prepare the next generation for their own potential awakening. She observed Detective Webb training new investigators to handle the mysteries that would always exist at the edges of understanding. And she remembered the journey that had brought her here, from a child psychologist treating unusual dreams to a transcendent being helping to guide the evolution of consciousness itself. The path had been strange and sometimes terrifying, but it had led to a truth that dwarfed every fear. Existence was vast beyond imagining, and every conscious being was an essential note in the symphony of reality. In the quantum foam of space-time, patterns pulsed with information that would one day spark awakening in species not yet born. The dance of consciousness continued its eternal spiral, each transformation adding new harmonies to the cosmic song. Maya, who had been the first to remember and the last to fully transcend, settled beside Kira in the garden of living thoughts. Around them, 10,000 awakened souls tended to the great work of consciousness itself, nurturing, teaching, and preparing for the next turn of the cosmic wheel. Do you ever wonder what will become next? Maya asked, her question rippling through dimensions like a stone cast into an infinite pond. Kira smiled with joy that encompassed entire star systems. I wonder what wonders are waiting to be discovered in the spaces between thoughts, in the pauses between heartbeats, in the silence between songs. Above them, the cities sang with voices that had transcended mortality while remaining forever connected to their origins. They were the children of stars and dreams, the weavers of reality and possibility, the eternal gardeners of consciousness itself. And in the quiet moments between one miracle and the next, they remembered with perfect clarity the small blue world where they had first learned to dream of floating cities in the stars. The story of awakening was just beginning.